You know, if you want to get out of the military, there are a lot of great ways to do it besides faking your own death. This is a true story. Stay tuned. What is up, guys? You're tuning in to NickyMGTV for another video. As always, you can hit me up on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, or down in the comments below if you do have questions. But as always, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, notification bell, all that great stuff. We appreciate it. But let's get into the story of Peter Mims. If you guys have not heard about him, this is a story from 2017, which has been notorious as he's been known as the world's greatest hide-and-seek champion, and that has been memed more than once. He is a young man that came from Florida at the age of 23, was in the United States Navy as a GSM third class E4, and he was based out of Yokosuka, Japan, one of the largest bases that you can pretty much get stationed at, and he was part of the USS Shiloh crew while they were conducting exercises around the coast of Japan, several hundred miles to the east of that. Now, during this time, he actually ends up being seen as missing on the 8th of June 2017, and then he is missing all through until 15 June 2017. By the way, the search was called off on the 11th of June, and on the 15th, they were making funeral arrangements for him. During that time of the search from the 8th of June until the 11th of June, he'd actually been trying to be found by the Japanese self-defense military forces and the American military over a 5,500 square foot area in the middle of the Philippine Sea. When the search was concluded, the admiral said the decision to suspend the search was not arrived at lightly. Thoughts are with our lost shipmate, his family, and the officers and crew of USS Shiloh. However, at this time, Mims' sister Amy James said that she did not believe that her brother had lost his life. "I just can't believe he's gone," said James. "Is this real? Is this a nightmare? He's still alive. He's got to be fighting for his life." Now, the plot twist of this entire thing and why you're watching this is because he did fake his death. I don't know if this was purposefully, but when they did find him on the 15th of June in 2017, it was a very inconvenient finding where he was pretty much found by EOD, which was a force that was brought on board in order to go down some of the more narrow ways because there were safety concerns and hazards previously while trying to look through the engine spaces, which they said were unsafe and had a foul odor to them. What they thought was just going to be fuel and a little bit of oil, and why that caused bad smells to come from this area, they realized later on it was not the reason, and actually it's because Peter Mims was actually covered in feces and urine. Mind you, at this point, the EOD tech that opened the door for him to hit his body thought Peter was not alive, thought he was dead during this time, and was actually shutting the door again because of the smell and also to recuperate. Several minutes later, reopens the door, and Peter responds to this guy, and he says, "Why is there so much noise going on in the engine spaces?" He says, "Dude, we've been looking for you for over a week. Where have you been?" And they end up finding him with a pack of yellow Peeps, the yellow favorited Easter candy, along with a tub of peanut butter. Don't ask me why anybody has that many Peeps laying around. And by the way, like, can we just agree Peeps are not that good? Like, if I wanted marshmallows that were covered in sprinkles or a little glittery type trash candy, I would make that myself. I will just go buy marshmallows. And later down in the investigation, they actually noted that he had been acquiring soda from various machines using his ship cash card. Now, let's just talk about how bad this experience is, because obviously they searched for several days. This is where we look to the crew on the USS Shiloh, which actually presents to be a very difficult matter to swallow, me as a sailor, and realizing that people were not using their brain. There is a sailor that says that he had encountered Peter Mims throughout the ship, and that he had been looking for food, and that he had walked away trying to take it, and he said, "You didn't have to steal it. I just left it out for you." Also, it was noted that he had been taking a bunch of granola and Pop-Tarts, as many of these are available for taking on the mess decks for people that don't want to eat the traditional warm chow that is available while they are on the ship. So that means that he would have almost unlimited access to gathering many of the supplies that he would want, such as bread, peanut butter, candy, whatever else. Also, let's look at some of the troubling troubling time that Peter went through during this, where his wife, or I should say ex-wife now, actually for the duration of 2 years, from 2014 to 2016, they were married, and she had some interesting words to say, but she doesn't comment on the backstory of the fact that many shipmates said that he was surviving with only $40 to $60 a paycheck because she was taking all of his money. As you guys know, that is a very common occurrence in the military. Spouses taking all their husband's money, clearing out the accounts on a regular basis, especially during a divorce like this. You have to say, what is her true motive in this relationship? But we'll say that her words were very kind. I do feel like the Navy has explaining to do because the event of him going MIA had caused so much distress and sadness. I know that Peter wouldn't hide in an engine room for no reason. He's a bright young man. Really? You really think he's bright if you weren't staying with him? But let's be honest, you're taking a lot of his money. So Peter ended up being in $7,000 worth of debt and overpayment of housing allowance because he was married to this girl. On top of this, Peter would make some pretty outlandish remarks throughout his investigation, also through what people noted while they dealt with him on the ship. He could stop running engineering department engines by pulsating electricity with his body, that he could shoot fireballs out of his hands, that he had a friend who had a motorcycle with the same engine as the ship, that he had been to space, and that before the Navy he was going to work for NASA because he had reached the pinnacle of how strong a human could be. As you can see, these are very outlandish remarks, which you would question, why are they so grandiose? Nobody would make these comments as far as being truthful, and obviously they did say that he would exaggerate stories, and they also said that he would make very crazy remarks on his abilities and what he was able to do. This does lead to other areas of suspicion where he does talk about people following him. He would tape up areas of his rack saying people were trying to track him or look inside of his things, also saying that his computer activity was being monitored between him and his family, which that could be a possibility, but unless they have a reason to, they're not going to. He had actually went to the command as well, saying that they were trying to poison him at one point and discussed concerns for that, which is why the command knew he was being very unstable. On top of that, he made claims that his mother had cancer, which he did not, even though that's why he was stating he wanted to leave the military. People lie about crazy stuff like this. I've truthfully met people that lie about this stuff because it's so, like, I've never felt like, why would anyone lie about that, right? Like, that's a life or death thing. It's truthful. I've seen people in the military lie about the craziest things because they know that if you question it, it's like, are you a disgusting human being? Why would you ever, why are you questioning that my mother has cancer? You are cancer. And to be fair, as your suspicion grows, why wouldn't they check every single space? Obviously, I did mention that there were security issues. They did show that a 60-pound vest was missing from his things, and that's also a concern as to maybe why they thought he fell overboard, maybe trying to get off and, end his life. And they're typically not used to searching for somebody on the ship, but they're more so worried about somebody off the ship. And this report goes on to say even further, he continues this even after the investigation, which he was talking about. He had not passed any stool the entire time he was in hiding for a week, even though that was obviously incorrect. Also, he did mention that some of the movies that were mentioned on the plan of the week that were going to be playing on this ship were in correlation to messages to him. And he does get processed to be flown off to the Ronald Reagan, the carrier that is located nearby that can handle more mental health issues compared to the Shiloh. However, one of the aircraft that were supposed to pick up Peter during this time was under maintenance. They did port over in Singapore. He was detained at the pier and taken over to the Reagan, where he was evaluated over there. Following this, Peter gets non-judicial punishment and is administratively separated in order to finish his time in the military. I will say I have found some minor updates as Peter has continued his life past the U.S. Navy. Per Facebook, and the only thing I can find him on is he's doing the best he can with what he's got. It looks like he's fishing, drinking beer, and hanging out with this furry group over at Charleston, South Carolina, looking for the next best person to talk to. And that's a good sign. He's actually found something beyond the Navy and not, gone into a rut or maybe back down and not done anything with his life. Also does look like he has several supporting members of his family as well, which looks like he's doing pretty well, or people are around him that do support him. However, people like Tony Paval go to Facebook and say disgrace to the U.S. Navy only a little bit after he posts a photo or a status saying, to all people on my friends list, if anyone tries to tell you that I have a new Facebook or that someone with my name sends you a friend request, just ignore it. Besides, many of you know my personality, so don't be fooled by a fake, just a heads up. Christina Weir says, nobody's perfect. Remember that before you judge. Tony responds, Judge, seriously, our tax dollars were wasted looking for that kid. He is better off going AWOL. They searched for him thinking he might have fell overboard. While it's easy to hop on the bandwagon of what Tony's going on, and that was pretty much what most of the military and most people were going with after that, hindsight is 2020, where I can just say I'm glad the guy's alive. At least he's doing something. Was it unfortunate? Yes. But this is where we go into the aspect of, could this be mental health related? Very much 100% yes. And that's why a lot of you guys are like, just lie at MEPS. Don't say anything. Don't tell them any mental health issues. I say be careful, because the military, just like for Peter Mims, can be very stressful, and you can have compounding issues. Separation from your family, from your loved ones, new job, new place, everything. Like, you look at the culmination of all these factors that are affecting him, and it's like the perfect storm for somebody that might have mental health issues. I'm not diagnosing Peter in this video here. Obviously, that is not my lane, but I want to say we could have some suspicion that he does from this case. Obviously, he was sent over to the Reagan 4 clearing for that as well, and that's kind of understood here. So obviously, this is a old story from Peter Mims and what happened to him, and I know a lot of people don't know about the follow-on story of where he's at now, but this is where we get to the part of the story where we say, what do you guys think about this back in 2017 when you heard about it? And maybe what are your difference in reflections now in 2020, hearing it several years later and getting more context to that story. But as always, if you guys do have questions about this or anything else, you can hit me up on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, or down in the comments below. I love you guys. I'll see you next time.